Hello, thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring stories near and far. I'm Chamberlain Uso at Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by my colleague at Voice of America in Washington.
Thank you, Chamberlain. I'm Haiti Adams-Fitzpatrick at our global headquarters in Washington, D.C. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with a look at gains made at the 30th AU Summit. Chamberlain Uso in Lagos brings you that story.
Oh yes, African leaders are more determined to achieve a more united continent and eradicate corruption, especially after decisions at the 30th African Union Summit. The new drive is evident in the focus of discussions at the headquarters of the Pan-African Bloc in Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, where President Buhari was chosen to champion the anti-corruption campaign.
Africa's leaders gather at the 30th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union in Addis Ababa to deliberate on institutional reforms, peace and security, free trade and other economic issues. The continental body is guided by a vision to achieve a prosperous and peaceful Africa, issues of peace and security without which there can be no sustainable development.
Rise of national egoism, the triggering of xenophobia and the rejection of the other are all significant symptoms and signals as if the values of solidarity, equality and justice are receding. We are of course pressing our concern in the face of this development to reiterate our commitment to the values of solidarity, tolerance and mutual respect. Humanity is at stake.
The theme of this year's summit is winning the fight against corruption, a sustainable path to Africa's transformation. The AU chose President of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, to lead this year's theme of anti-corruption.
I pledge that I shall do my very best to ensure that the anti-corruption agenda will receive the attention it deserves and make the impact we all hope for during 2018 and beyond.
The African Union also launched a single African air transport market with a view to accelerating the process of integration. The decision was born out of the AU Agenda 2063, a strategic framework for the socio-economic transformation of the continent over the next 50 years. Rwandan President Paul Kagame, now AU chairperson, highlights the need to expedite the process of implementing reforms to benefit the African people.
We will launch the single African air transport market. This is a major step forward for transportation. Our people deserve a brighter future. Their sacrifice and hard work should be rewarded with better lives for families and communities.
Other remarkable decisions reached at the meeting are in areas of free movement of persons, rights of residents and free trade. The Assembly decided to hold an extraordinary session in March to consider and sign the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area, amongst others. Leaders have pledged their support for the establishment of the CFTA and speedy establishment of a single, unified market in Africa to increase trade, create more jobs and reduce poverty.
The quest for a united and strong Africa dates as far back as the establishment of the Organization of African Unity, that's the OAU, which was set up in 1963, and it gave birth to the African Union in 2002. The transformation was to ensure progress in every area of development on the continent, and over the years, substantial progress has been made in many areas, but there remains a lot to be achieved in terms of conflict resolution. Joining us to analyze the role of the AU in addressing Africa's internal conflict is Voke Igoroje, a member of the International Coalition for the Responsibility to Protect. He joins us from Warri in Delta State. All right, thank you for joining us. The transition from OAU to the AU was to effectively address challenges facing the continent. What would you describe as major differences between the former and the latter, perhaps in terms of policies, principles, and achievements?
Okay, thank you for this. One of the philosophical bases for cooperation under the African Union was for member states to observe certain fundamental values and standards, including like respect for human rights, democratic governance, and the condemnation of constitutional changes of government. And what does this mean? This brought out a new thinking and a new principle. And this was expressed in Article 4 of the AU Act, which gives the right of the Union to intervene in a member state pursuant to the decision of the Assembly in respect of grave circumstances, namely like war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity. Now, this is the major shift between the OAU, which dwelt on the principle of non-interference, to the AU, which dwelt on the principle of non-indifference.
Let me stretch that a little further. How effective would you say the AU has been in addressing conflicts, given the fact that it has the right to intervene in the internal affairs of member states when it becomes absolutely necessary?
The AU has the organs to act. It has the Peace and Security Council. It has the Council of the Wise, which is at the Elders Council for mediation and conflict resolution. So it can activate that. Don't forget that in the time of the first conflict in Kenya, after the first election of Uhuru Kenyatta, they did activate these mechanisms, especially the panel of the wise, which was then led by the former Secretary of the United Nations, Mr. Kofi Annan. So yes, it has acted somehow in some cases, but in many other cases, it has been slow to act. Sometimes it is caused by the issues of funding and sometimes by the issues of logistics. But I think by and large, the AU have not acted very proactively in some of these conflicts. And I think it can do better because it does have the resources and it does have the mechanism to act.
One more thing. Do you think a continental body like the AU is best suited for managing conflict, or would it be better handled at regional level?
In many times, it is better handled at the regional level, but it works by way of collaboration. It is better when a regional body is included in the whole process of managing conflict. You cannot have a conflict in Nigeria, for example, and the AU comes from Addis Ababa and want to act without the collaboration and the support from ECOWAS. So it's always better to handle at the regional level, but more effective when the AU work in collaboration with the regional institutions. So it's always better to deal with the regional bodies because they are like closer to where the conflict is, and they have more understanding and they have better leverage in dealing with this country, in dealing with this conflict in this country.
All right, Voke Igoroje with the International Coalition for the Responsibility to Protect. Thank you for joining us today on Africa 54.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.